Alright everybody, so I haven't posted in a while. I wanted to talk about what those of us that are like awakened to the understanding that we are indeed in this kind of spiritual war. I wanted to kind of define it a little bit, right? So I've heard this time talked about as, we're at war. And it's almost like an invisible war. So 6th generational warfare, where most don't even know they're at war. Right? That's what I've heard it termed as, coined as. Spiritual war between dark and light at this point. Or, as I would aptly put it, it's a battle for soul. Right? So what does that mean, battle for soul? So soul to me, right, is the God spark. So if you think about God as the creator of all, the grand architect, if you like, think about it as a massive simulation where there's a massive master frame database which is so infinitely big you couldn't see. It's just infinite. And imagine that as God consciousness or God mind, right? So that's everything that is, ever has been, or ever will be. Then imagine that you're just a fractal of that, having a human experience in a skin suit. We talked about all this stuff before, which means, we're not God, but we're God-like. We have a God spark. Those of us that have a God spark that makes you human, that makes you have all emotions, that makes you living and demonstrative within this skin suit. Right, that's, to me, is soul. So soul is your God spark. So a fractal of spirit, which is everything. And that part of you that's within this manifestation is under threat. So the biological being that you are has life expression through the soul spark. And if we look back to times when people had proper human interactions with each other, they laughed, they cried, they communicated, they shared, they cared, they loved, all of those things, both sides of the coin. They got angry, they were happy, they expressed with each other a lot more. You can notice that in the majority you don't see that anymore. So what you're seeing instead is like people that appear like biological beings but without that spark, which has been referred to as NPC, non-player character, just running programs, somebody who's lost their spark, somebody who's soulless. And you're seeing now within mainstream media, particularly within the field of awakening, that's a common thing, that's a known thing. There are many non-player characters within the simulation that are simply shirt filler extras. And in the main, they're running programs they don't even know they're running, which are geared towards keeping the majority in line, following the program. And then there's those of us that don't do that, and that can't relate with those kind of people, and they're the ones that, to me, still have the soul spark. So the battle for soul that I'm talking about is to smash that out of you, or to dim that soul spark so much that you forget you've even got it. I don't believe it can be destroyed, but this is a battle for soul. And if you look at it as a battle to save soul on a larger scale, then collectively we need to help each other with that. But it begins, this battle for soul, with each and every individual one of us. Right? So with each and every individual one of us, we are battling to keep our humanness. Every day we're becoming more and more disconnected, getting more and more replaced with AI, and that's the sole objective. Replace the biological humans that we are with AI, or some sort of fusion which maybe resembles in part the skin suit with AI attachments, but it's no longer the conscious living being that it was. That part is been replaced with something else, with a replication, with a sad zero, with a poor Xerox copy of the same. Right? So they say human beings are flawed. They're flawed because they feel emotion, they feel pain, they feel suffering, they feel unhappiness, and that's true, they do. But conversely, they can feel joy, love, real empathy and care for others. Not manipulative empathy where somebody senses how someone feels and uses it to their advantage, but real empathy and care and love and joy. We can also feel those things. So if we are biologically taken and organically replaced by something that's AI, or fused to something that is AI, then our ability to feel pain and suffer will be gone, but conversely our ability to feel joy and love will also be gone. We will be in effect motionless or soulless, and at the nefarious hand of manipulation to something else. So that to me is what this war is. This spiritual war is a war for your humanness as an individual, and that war takes place in many ways. Your personal battles. That's what your own battle for soul is. Whether that's an addiction, alcohol, hard drugs, prescription drugs, gambling, pornography, junk food, shit food. All of those things that are designed to keep you down, keep you from expressing or finding the higher part of you. I mean, you've only got to look at any poor area, poor community, right? Any council estate, any place that is people living on the poverty line. What surrounds them in terms of recreation and shops and amenities are fast food, junk food, shit food outlets, supermarkets that sell pre-packaged sugar-ridden shit, cheap booze shops, bookies for gambling, and places for wasting your money away in machines, shops that offer pornography. Even in an impoverished area, what they put in that impoverished area is there to keep you there. Postage stamp of a green space park as opposed to planting more woodland. There's no health foods. There's no open recreational indoor and outdoor gym areas where you could, or well-being centres where the stuff would be focused in that impoverished area on improving people. Everything is geared towards keeping you small, keeping you down. Right? So I've said before that, and many others have spoke about it. In particular, Rupert Sheldrake, who was one of the very few scientists massively respected in seniority, along with Ian McGilchrist, who talks about the left brain and the right brain being completely out of balance. But Rupert Sheldrake talks about the morphic resonance, which is the field that we live in, that we interact with, and we can't see it visually, just like you can't see Wi-Fi, but it exists, and we interact on an individual level and on a collective level with it, right? So when we get back to this battle for soul, everything within the collective is steered towards that which is to make everybody jump on the same train. So you've got people running programs from thoughts that have been imposed upon them, which of course is the complete opposite to critical thinking. And people run these programs and people just follow, and generations of people are brought up to follow the same way. And on a collective level, the whole energetic is controlled and steered. But those of us some of those that are awakened at this time know this and recognise it. And what we can recognise when we know that, and when we understand that this is sixth generational warfare, or what it's been called, where we are at war and don't know we are at war. It's a spiritual war between dark and light, a spiritual war, a battle where the prize is your humanness, your soul. And it's not just externally imposed upon you, it's internally imposed upon you. So your inevitable soul breakdown, not destruction, because I don't believe it's destroyed, but the loss of your battle for soul must be done at your hand, must be done by you. So outside influences will manipulate you, but ultimately you are responsible for its demise, right? So your own personal battle for soul could be, like I said, addictions for the things I said, and could be, some sort of depression, struggle with depression, mental illness, which many people have. The imposition from previous family line, from parents, grandparents, and other generations of trauma that has found its way to you, where you have limiting self-worth. When anything good in your life comes around, you're compelled to self-sabotage. So mental battles, they'll be part of your own personal battle for soul. And anything else, so pain is another. So for me, my personal battles have been, struggle with mind for sure. Compelled towards things that are probably less useful to me, not good for me. Particularly dietary was one of the things, was the final thing I've really got into shape. I took care of most things, and what I consumed. And it's not just what you consume through your mouth, it's what you consume through what you see, through what you listen to, through what you share with. I mean, everything seems to be geared towards, like I said, keeping you down, keeping you spiritually dumb. And what does it mean to be spiritual? To be fair, spiritual doesn't have anything to do with 24-hour meditation and staring at a candle. Spiritual to me simply means being an adult, as I've said before, using intelligent power towards what is presented to you via critical thinking, as opposed to just following without any thought whatsoever, which is childlike. So the majority that follow without any thought whatsoever are childlike. They lack spirituality. To be spiritual to me is simply to be an adult. Own your own shit. Take charge of your own shit. Don't look for external short-term gratification, because everything you need is inward. And when you realise that, you realise what you are. Because when they say you have the power to co-create your own experience, you really, really do. You can't necessarily change the objective of the script, the outcome, but you can co-create your experience of it. You can choose what you do with what you're given, as we've talked about before. And what you'll be given on a personal level can be addictions, mental illness, physical pain, health problems. So for me, physical pain on a number of levels. So I started a strength training career when I was 19 and worked through competitive Olympic lifting, amateur strongman, etc. And I beasted my body. I trained in martial arts at the early start of 11 years old and studied every martial method that you could imagine, and very quickly geared it all towards the reality of dealing with real violence. So everything about my training was violence management. So everything I pressure tested, so it's impactive. Everything that goes out on an impactive level, force comes generated back into the skeleton, into your frame, and over a period of time, up to the age of 27, you think you're invincible. And then I started to accumulate injuries, and then at 30, I started to realise that I was very different. And then 40, and then 50. I actually peaked in physical maturity at 40 in terms of my strength, my task-specific strength for combat, which is what it was implemented for. I actually came into, my best, if you like. You peak much later in strength type of activities. And my martial career from 40s onward. But all of that time, I've physically abused my body, and I've had arthritis all over my body. I've had a left hip replacement, and probably need a right one. I needed a right shoulder replacement approximately 15 years ago. I've got arthritis in my hands. I've dislocated most of my fingers. I injured my neck some time ago, which creates trapped nerves and all this shit down me. So I'm used to pain, right? And for years I've just lived with pain, and on a pain volume dial it's always been about 6 or 7, and then I went on a carnivore diet, which I've been on for 11 months, which has got me in the best shape of my life. Eased my pain massively because it's anti-arthritic, so I avoided sugar. But I've had a flare-up of pain recently, and it's nerve pain. Nerve pain is different. And I've come to realise that one of my battles is pain. I deal with pain every day, because the pain fucking drives you mad. So I've got this pain in my shoulder blade that's just a dull toothache, and it's just repeated. And then it will catch me off guard where it's a nerve pain, where someone cranks it up. So I almost imagine that we've got a fucking handler, and he's got an iPad, and he can turn up your emotional responses, turn them down, turn up everything in terms of attributes, up and down. And one of the things he can be right, you give him a nice pain-free day today. Oh, let's crank the pain up. We can give him a bit of suffering. And you almost imagine it's like that, because sometimes when it goes off, like I'm in my neck, it's just like electricity. I can almost imagine there's a dialogue with it. Hey, do you like that, you fucker? Yeah, have some more. And what I've kind of realised is that's you being tested, because the what that is striving to make you lose grasp of your soul is not a physical entity that you can see. So if you use the analogy of the devil, it will send things to you to gradually corrode you. So for me, maybe it was overtraining in the early years, not taking the care I should have, so that now it's set me up for this period of injury and pain, and it can use pain as a resource. Others might be that send someone to you and it's a toxic relationship. The toxic relationship makes you do something external, like take alcohol, take drugs. It sends things your way, addictions, pain, suffering, people that detour you, put you on a different path. And all of this is geared towards your taking your attention away from finding the highest part of you and realizing what you are. But it sends you these things that makes you constantly occupied and in pain, and for a lot in the fight-flight response. And if you're in constant fight-flight response, or worry, fearful, then you're never going to find that highest part of your being, which exists in your absolute homeostasis, that feed and breathe state. So as a spiritual battle that begins with you, it sends you, this dark energetic sends you things that you have to cope with. And if you don't cope with, you'll despair. And if you despair, you lose sight of soul. You lose grasp of soul. That's what I believe is happening. Your great tool is your awareness. So your awareness that is what's what. And your awareness every moment to recognize, rather than just knee-jerk respond to any stimulus that fucks you off, that I see what you're doing. And if you can take that pause and take measures of self-care or something where you mitigate its response on you, well, then you are in essence winning the fight, right? You're winning the battle. But in order to do that, you must be vigilant and sober. So that I had a recent tattoo put on the back of my leg after I'd seen it on my friend in the US, Michael Van Beek. He had it on his arm. It was a quote from a film, and it said, "Remain vigilant and sober, for the devil stalks you like the lion stalks its prey." I believe it's a passage from the Bible, a passage from one of those religious texts. But nonetheless, it's apt, because remain sober. So if you're pissed out your brains, or you're off your head on cocaine, or you're, you know, preoccupied with something external for relief, you know, instant gratification and temporary relief, then you're not compos mentis. If you're not sober, you're not aware, you're not vigilant. And when you're not vigilant is when shit gets you down and you react in a very negative way. Right? So your best tool is awareness, because the first part of the battle is to get you right. You've got to get you right. You've got to get your soul protected. Right? Best way to do that is self-care, self-love. So I wake up every morning with self-love, self-care. I don't mean that in an egotistical way. By self-care, I mean look after your body, look after this vessel. Be careful of what thoughts come into your mind. Recognise when you feel in a negative way what you're thinking. Scrutinise what you're thinking and ask yourself, is they my thoughts? Am I generally thinking that? Would I choose to think that? Or am I just running some program that's on a loop in the background that I'm responding to? Recognise that. There's the awareness part. Stay vigilant. Look after your body. Be careful of what you put in your body, you know, what you consume on all levels. Recognise when you're being triggered to eat that fucking sweet shit, eat crap food, smoke that joint, take that line of coke, drink that drink, watch that porn clip. Recognise when, you know, those things are upon you, because, you know, they're not for your best. They come from your lower self. They don't come from your higher self. And that's not to say that, you know, that you can't partake in these things now and then. But be very vigilant that such things are employed in order to steer you downward. So if you use that Taoism approach of not never, not always, not too much, not too little. I mean, this is all wisdom that I got from the group that I used to belong to, Soul Dojo, my friend Lex. And this is where all that study come from. And I talked about this in the book Full Spectrum Warrior. Now, you know, I said it's available for you guys. All you got to do is send me an email and I'll send you the PDF. I'll send you it for free. But these are some of the conclusions, you know, and you've got to be vigilant of such stuff. You've got to recognise when you're being triggered, but at the same time you need respite, you know. So if you want to eat strict all week and have a cheat day, great. You want to take a day off and maintaining your fitness regime and just chill all day, do it. You want to fucking smoke a weed joint, you want to go to a party, take a line of coke, no one's telling you shouldn't do it. Just not never, not always, not too much, not too little. Find a balance point. Whenever you feel you're off anywhere, pull yourself back on center, because the best place to be between two polarities is in the middle. Right? That's what the Grey Jedi idea is all about. So your goal must be straight off the bat, or should be straight off the bat, is to do everything you can to become the best version of you. Right? That's the biggest fuck you to this tyrannical machine that's running this matrix. When you do that, and you find, you know, a way of doing that you can structure, that you can make a routine that you can follow, then seek to share it with others. Because, like I said, this is a battle for soul, and it begins with you helping you. But ultimately, that's got to have an effect on others. Whether just somebody knows and sees that's what you're doing and it motivates them without any push from you, whether you've helped another soul, or whether you actively seek to help others. Right? So some of us actively seek to help others because we realise it's our purpose. So my purpose, which I realised and I've talked about before, is to be a protector. The protector archetype, as Jung talked about, many archetypes, but the protector archetype. So I believe that I am here to protect me and mine and help other young men and women protect theirs at a time where that is in most need. And my objective to do such a thing was unknowing at first, began 25 years ago, 26 years ago, when I formulated UC over combatives. The first 10 years I didn't really know what the purpose was. I just knew that I was somehow blessed for doing something that I love doing, and as a bonus I was helping other people. Then I had a spiritual awakening later than that, and realised that everything that's ever gone before in my life had to go before in my life in order for me to come to the conclusions I'm at, in order for me to do what I'm doing, to be attracted to what I was drawn to, and to become established at it to the point where I'm on my own admission, but one of the most recognised people in this industry, amongst others. And I realised that my goal was to be a protector of me and mine, and to show other young men and women how to do the same, and particularly mentor many young men, which I've been doing for years. They just seem compelled to come toward me for that kind of guidance, if you like. I was happy to do that, but then I recognised the need why. So during this time now, there's younger generations of men that are confused about what they are. And even if they're not confused about what they are or what they were born biologically, they are confused as to what a man should be. What does the old school hunter-gatherer mean? Did they even know that term existed? And there's those young men that have had a family and realise the world's the way it is, and they want to protect their wife and they want to protect their children, and they're scared, and they seek direction, and that begins with some sort of means to protect yourself in a physical sense, which leads them to my field, to me. The self-protection part is just the vehicle. There are many other people doing similar work to me. Call them light workers, call them what you want, in very different fields. My field just happens to be to teach men how to deal with violence, how to deal with fear, how to be a warrior. And that allows them to implement strength of character into many other areas of their life. So it's a self-help, self-improvement thing. But so on the journey of protecting my own soul, that's my battle every day, and that's what I'm working towards. And the objective should be to help others do the same. So at this time, those who are enlightened in some way, who are absolutely frustrated with trying to wake up anyone. I mean, like I said before, the time to wake up the sheep's gone. It's time to wake up the lions. And the lions that are left, some of them, they're waking up. And even some of the sheep that you thought couldn't wake up before are now coming to realise. So we can't give up on those that are struggling now. We have to show them the way if we can. But you must show by example. So I don't make these clips all the time for the Peaceful Warrior channel, because as I've said before, I only speak when I've got something to say. But to be honest, I want you to know from the heart, right, that we've all got our battles. We've all got our battles. So this time, or a few times when I've moved away from making these kind of clips, it's not because I've lost the motivation to help others, but primarily because I'm probably at those times struggling with my own battle, which of course takes the priority, right? So I've got to get me right. before I can talk about how you can get you right. Otherwise it's hypocritical. So I've had my own struggles in recent months. It's always a struggle, it's a battle, and we must have trials in order to be what we should become. We need pressure. Diamond must be put under pressure to be polished. But in the times that I've not made any clips, take solace in the fact that that's probably a high point of my own struggle, and I'm seeking to get through it. And here's the thing, right? There's no question in my brain, in my mind, that I won't get through it. There's no, oh, I can't handle this, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Right? Well, of course there's doubts, we have doubts. But there's an overriding factor that no matter what the fuck comes, I'll keep pushing forward, nose over toes. And I will get through. And I believe that I've got guidance, and I believe I've got protection. I believe that for those of us that are awakened at this time, we've found our purpose with the mission to help others, that we're supposed to do what we're doing, and we will get trials and we will get help. And ultimately, there's no coincidences here. I believe that this fucking script is written, but has the ability to be co-written by each individual. So the outcome's not set. We can't change the script, but we can co-create our own script, right? But the battle for our own soul is designed to amplify the more and more we start helping others in order to slow us down. It's the way it works. It's the way this Legion virus works. So it will throw everything it can at you in every way, and it will catch you off guard. And you're human. If you've still held your humanness, you will falter. You will fall. But you must get up. You must. Because you must keep going. To fail is not an option. To perish from this body still doing is a possibility. To perish from this body once your work is done and your part is done is an absolute plausibility. But to give up and perish in this soul and then perish in this body is not a fucking option. That's not an option. So in other words, you will do everything you are supposed to do, or you will die while you're doing it. So they will not win. They will not win. But it's going to be difficult. And the thing to understand is this isn't about you in the character that you are, and the experience that you're having. It's not about you. You're important, of course. But it's about what you're supposed to do while you're here. And if you can shuffle off this mortal coil, having fought all the way to leave whole with your soul intact, and know that what you do and have done has helped others, that's your mission successful as far as I'm concerned. I believe I've got more to do. But ultimately, those of us that are on this course, we will probably be long gone before we see the changed outcome. But we will be part of the catalyst that influences those that go on, to influence those that go on, to influence those that go on, to the point where those that exist in the future do so because of what we've done. And I don't want no pat on the back for that. It just means it's almost like the nefarious, the dark is trying to replace everything with AI, which will be a soulless realm. And contingency plans were put in place in order to allow the minority to continue to carry the light, keep the candle from going out on into future generations, so maybe consciousness can prevail and we'll thrive again. Because these cunts that are doing this, are in their own end days, whether that's being imposed upon them or whether they're just ending the cycle to start a new reset, do it all over again as it's been done before. You know, the Matrix films talks about that this is the sixth time, you know, incarnation of Earth. 6 resets have gone before, and you know, we are now into the 6th time that, you know, the previous existence will fall and the new will arise. But it's a battle for the energy, for the energetic, what they call the loosh. It's a battle between light and dark. And if the dark wins, the next cycle could be dark. And if the light wins, the next cycle will be light, hence 1,000 years of peace. But it's a battle. And every time you respond in a knee-jerk way by getting angry, every time you act without thought, every time you do something derogatory, every time you do something that could hurt your soul, that's loosh or energy created for the dark. And every time you don't do that, is energy or loosh created for the light. And we need to work towards the benevolence. But in order to do that successfully, you need to know both sides. You need to be the grey Jedi. You need to know dark in order to protect light. So I'll get as fucking dark as is necessary in order to protect all that I love. But the dark will not consume me. That's the difference. Anyway, that's my definition of this. People talk about 6th generational warfare, at war, you don't know you're at war. When they talk about battle for soul or spiritual war, these are my thoughts on what is meant by that.